But Thailand actually ranked number 4 in the world for how well we are handling the pandemic. This is the rank that studied by the Australian institution. Thailand is on the top 5 countries ranked for best COVID-19 response, according to an Australian think tank, Lowy Institute. The institute assessed almost 100 countries with publicly available and comparable data on 6 criteria, including confirmed cases, deaths, and testing metrics. The institute ranks New Zealand the best for handling the coronavirus pandemic, while Brazil is on the bottom as the world's worst. The report said that collectively, these indicators point to how well or poorly countries have managed the pandemic in the 36 weeks that followed their 100th confirmed case of COVID-19. Aside from New Zealand, which has 94.4 points out of 100, they largely kept the virus at bay with border closures and go early, go hard lockdowns and testing regimes. This is quote unquote by the report. The number 2 is Vietnam at 90.8 points. Number 3, Taiwan, 86.4 points. And number 4 is Thailand, 84.2 points, not that far behind. In the bottom place, at number 98, because it's overall 98 countries, it was Brazil, closely followed by Mexico, Colombia, Iran, and United States. Brazil has recorded more than 218,000 coronavirus deaths, a toll second only to that the United States. For much of the last year, the 2 most populous nations in the Americas have been led by nationalist leaders who have actively downplayed the threat of COVID-19. They ridiculed mask wearing, opposed lockdowns, and contracted the virus themselves. We're talking about Bolsonaro and Trump. China, where the virus first emerged, was not included in the ranking because of what the think tank said, that lack of publicly available data on testing. The Lowy Institute said that there was no clear winner when it came to which political system best handled the pandemic. Instead, almost across the board, the response has been, they used the word lackluster. The report said that some countries have managed the pandemic better than others, but most countries outcompete each other only by degrees of underperformance. The tools to contain the spread of COVID-19, such as stay-at-home orders, lockdowns, and border closures, have been common to most countries. But how governments convinced or compel their citizens to adhere to these measures often reflect the nature of their political systems. However, the report said that smaller nations with populations of fewer than 10 million people did appear to have some advantages, the cohesive societies together with capable institutions. But overall, like we know now, cases have now topped 100 million worldwide, with some 2.2 million people have died from the virus since the outbreak began in December 2019. And may I add that America has about 20% of the fatalities rate of the whole world, and Brazil is 10%. It's a little over 200,000 people.
And what we may have noticed that the countries with the worst
COVID-19 response.
Yeah, and we noticed that the leaders, well, we don't like to blame the leaders for this, but what we may have noticed is that many people in those countries refuse to wear face masks, and the government has always been against the lockdowns and the closures of things, as opposed to New Zealand. If we look at Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, she took very strict measures, even though they found only a few cases. When they found the first few cases during that time, the first thing they did was they locked down the entire country, and they just kept it that way. So that was why New Zealand was highly praised for the way they handled with the pandemic. And many of the countries have actually learned from New Zealand as well.
And New Zealand, the latest news from New Zealand is that they are considering close the border for the rest of this year as well. A lot of people think that maybe later this year, a lot of countries will start open up and there will be more travel again, but sound like it's not such a case for New Zealand.
Definitely. And